the small one who carried 1,000 suns in her heart. The station drifted at the edge of a tired star system, where light looked thin and weak. Many species passed through the place, but no one stayed for long. The gravity felt wrong, the air hummed too softly, and the nearby star flickered like it was losing the will to burn. Among soldiers in heavy armor, traders with loud voices, and officials wearing bright symbols of rank, there was a small human child. She walked slowly through the wide halls, her steps quiet, her hands folded in front of her. She was thin, short, and plain. Her clothes were simple and worn. Most beings did not even notice her. Those who did notice often felt uneasy, though they could not explain why. They told themselves it was nothing. Humans were weak. Everyone knew that. Short lives, soft bodies, and little natural defense. Humans survived only because others allowed them to. The child sat near the observation window where the distant star could be seen. She liked to watch it. Its light came and went in slow waves. Sometimes it dimmed so much that the station lights adjusted without command. Engineers blamed old systems. No one connected it to the child sitting quietly nearby. A tall armored guard passed her each day. His kind had skin like stone, and eyes that reflected light sharply. He never spoke to her, but he slowed when he walked past. His heart beat faster then, and he did not know why. Once, when alarms sounded during a minor power drop, he found himself standing in front of her without thinking, as if to protect her. He felt ashamed afterward. In the medical wing, injured travelers rested. When the child passed through with a caretaker, pain seemed to dull. Machines steadied, heart rates smoothed. Doctors noticed the change but blamed coincidence. Science demanded clear causes, and this had none. Far above, the star groaned. Deep sensors picked up strange readings. The star was aging too fast, its core twisted in ways that should not happen for many more centuries. Scientists argued over data, each blaming errors in the other's work. The idea that a star could fail early frightened them all. The child felt it before the alarms came. She stopped walking. Her breath caught. She placed one small hand against the wall as if the station itself had cried out to her. When the first emergency tone echoed through the halls, panic spread quickly. Traders dropped cargo. Officials shouted orders that changed every moment. Soldiers took positions that made no sense. Evacuation plans were called up and dismissed just as fast. The station could not move. Its engines were offline for long repairs. Escape ships were too few. Even if they launched, the unstable gravity of the star would tear them apart. The child was guided to a shelter zone with others. She sat quietly while beings around her argued and cried. Some prayed. Some cursed the universe. She watched their faces with calm eyes that seemed too old for her small body. A senior commander stood at the center of the command ring, surrounded by glowing displays. His species had conquered many worlds. His voice had broken rebellions. Now it shook. The star was collapsing, not exploding yet, but folding inward, pulling its space like a wound that refused to close. The station would be crushed or burned. There was no plan that saved them. The child stood. Her caretaker reached for her, but stopped. Something in the air had changed. It felt warmer, softer. The station lights brightened slightly. The child walked out of the shelter zone and into the open hall. Many turned to look, confused, annoyed, afraid. A human child had no place here. She looked at the nearest officer and spoke in a small voice. "Why are you all so afraid of the light?" The question cut through the noise. The officer stared at her, unable to answer. Others laughed nervously. One shouted that this was not the time for games. The child did not argue. She only looked toward the observation window, where the dying star pulsed like a wounded heart. At that moment, sensors shifted again. The star slowed. Just a little, barely enough to measure, but enough to be impossible. Scientists froze. Data streamed across screens, clean and clear. No error. The collapse had paused. The child took another step forward. Her breathing was steady. Her eyes reflected the distant light. Long-range observers from other systems watched in disbelief. A human signal was showing on deep stellar scans. Not a ship, not a weapon. A presence. The station trembled as the star pulled again, stronger this time. The pause ended. Alarms returned, louder than before. The child swayed. Someone finally ran to her side, lifting her gently. Her skin felt warm but not hot. Her heartbeat was slow and strong.
"What are you doing?" one asked in fear. The child looked up.
"Listening," she said. The star screamed in silence, and the station waited to see what would happen next. The station shuddered as the distant star struggled. Its light had dimmed again, and the trembling of the station reminded everyone of the danger above. Aliens of many kinds shouted and moved in panic. They argued over commands and priorities, but nothing helped. The power of the star was too great, too chaotic, for any machine to control. Engineers, with hands shaking, adjusted controls that would do nothing. The sensors around the star showed numbers that did not make sense. Some claimed errors, others suspected sabotage. The readings centered strangely around the small human child. She sat on the edge of the hall, her legs dangling over the metal floor. Her small hands rested lightly on her knees. She did not panic. Her eyes watched the star. She could feel it, somehow, though she had no words to describe it. When it pulsed, she felt a whisper of its pain and fear. It was a strange feeling, one she had always carried inside her but had never understood. Others would not believe such a small human could sense the fate of a star, and yet the reading showed something impossible. The presence of her influence near the dying sun. The tallest alien officer, his skin like folded stone, approached and demanded she move to safety. She shook her head. Calmly, she rose and stepped forward. Machines near her stabilized. Lights flickered less. Monitors stopped blaring warnings. The tall officer blinked, startled, as if the laws of physics themselves had paused to watch the small human. Another being, one with scales that reflected every color of the hall, knelt slightly, as if in respect. It was not obedience, it was recognition. Something old and powerful stirred inside them all, something that had waited to notice humans. A scientist ran to the command center, shouting numbers and calculations, trying to explain the anomaly. The computer screens had altered, showing patterns that mirrored the human's presence. Every formula used to predict star collapse failed. Every model crashed. The more she moved, the more the readings changed. Others began to whisper that humans carried something no one else had, the ability to endure, to feel, to shape the universe without weapons or engines. The child raised her hands slightly, not to touch the star, but in gesture, as if asking it to listen. Energy pulsed through the room. Machines hummed in harmony instead of chaos. Warnings paused. Soldiers stopped their frantic movement and looked. Some began to feel hope, a strange feeling they had thought lost. Pain in injured crew members eased, just enough for them to breathe easier. One small robot designed to repair the station slowed in confusion, then began functioning better. The presence of the human changed everything around her, though no one knew why. They only felt it. Outside the station, in the depths of space, other fleets began to notice the anomaly. Alien observers far away detected a human influence, a signal that was not a signal at all, but something deeper, something alive and radiant. They whispered across channels. It was impossible. Humans were weak. No human could affect a star. And yet the readings were there, undeniable. The child turned her gaze toward the star, sensing its rhythm. It was fragile, screaming silently, trembling like it had lost all confidence. The station's alarms were a mere echo of its cry. Without her, the collapse would continue. With her, maybe, just maybe, she felt exhaustion in the core of the star, but also a strange patience. It responded to the feelings she carried, even if she did not fully understand why. The aliens began to murmur, voices low and fearful. Some wanted to remove her from the station, to hide her, to stop this human that seemed to hold power none of them had ever imagined. Others hesitated. There was something sacred about her presence. Their instincts told them not to harm her, though. Their minds tried to justify it. In that hesitation, the child stepped into the open hall. Her movement caused a subtle shift in the station's energy. Consoles that had burned out flickered to life. Doors that jammed opened smoothly. The sound of the star's distress quieted just slightly, enough for the crew to notice. Confused, they looked at each other. Fear mixed with hope. What did this human possess? The child spoke quietly, words almost lost in the hum of the station. Why does the world fear what it cannot hold? Her voice did not demand attention. It drew it. It was as if her question touched the soul of the station itself. The commander froze, unable to speak. Even the toughest soldiers stopped moving. Something inside them was remembering something long forgotten. That humans survived against impossible odds, not through strength, but through endurance, through heart, through the quiet fire of being alive. Outside, the star pulsed again, as if listening. For a moment, it slowed its collapse. Engineers shouted at the screens. Scientists ran numbers frantically. Nothing worked. And yet the star had paused. Just a little, but it had paused. Observers across space could not believe it. The report said a human presence was interacting with the dying sun. That was impossible, and yet, here it was. She could feel the heat, the pull of gravity, the ache of a dying fire. She did not touch it, but her presence alone seemed to soothe it. She remembered stories passed down among humans, tales of endurance, of survival under suns that burned hotter than most species could imagine. Every loss, every sorrow, every joy of her kind seemed to resonate within her. It was not knowledge, not strength, not magic. It was memory, carried in the quiet heart of a small human. The commander spoke, voice shaking. "Move her away. We cannot risk it." But before the order could be completed, another tremor shook the station. Lights flickered. The alarms screamed again. Panic returned. The child did not falter. She lifted her hand slightly, almost imperceptibly, and the tremor slowed. Alarms became manageable. Panic eased. Soldiers and engineers looked around in wonder. Machines that had failed for hours began working again. The impossible was happening in front of them. The small human, who carried nothing more than herself, was altering the fate of a dying star. And then, deep sensors outside the station detected a strange pattern. Not a wave, not a signal, but a pulse. It moved outward from the station like warmth, affecting the star, bending its collapse just slightly. Alien observers whispered across long distances. It could not be a human. Yet the evidence was clear. Something inside this human, something she did not even name, interacted with the universe in ways no one had ever seen. The child turned back to the hall. She could see the confusion and fear in everyone. She understood that they did not know what she was doing, nor did she fully understand herself, but instinct told her to continue, to stand, to exist. That alone might save them. The tall officer stepped forward. He wanted to pull her back, to stop the strange influence, but as he approached, he felt a deep calm, a quiet fire that made his muscles relax and his mind clear. He could not move. Something held him back, something ancient and real. He stepped aside, letting her pass. The child moved slowly down the hall, toward the observation deck. Every step seemed to brighten the lights, steady the walls, ease the engines. Others followed at a distance, afraid but unable to turn away. She had no plan, no words, no commands. Only her presence. And that was enough. The star pulsed again, stronger this time, as if acknowledging her presence. It was not healed. It was not stable. But it had hope, and in the station the crew felt it too. A hope they had not dared to imagine. The child pressed her small hand against the glass of the observation deck. She could feel the warmth of the star, the heat that was not only fire, but life. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "I am here."
I see you. You are not alone.
The star seemed to respond, slowing its collapse again, its flickering less violent. The readings on the monitors were impossible. The models that predicted death were wrong. The galaxy would have to reconsider humans now, not as weak and small, but as bearers of a force no one could measure, no one could weaponize, yet powerful beyond imagination. And in that quiet moment, the station waited. The child, small and unassuming, carried the legacy of all her kind. And the star, though dying, began to listen. The child remained at the observation window, watching the distant star pulse and flicker. She felt the pain of its core like a quiet echo in her chest. Around her, the station buzzed with tension and confusion. Soldiers whispered to one another, trying to make sense of what they had witnessed. Scientists stared at their screens, unable to explain the anomaly. Engineers worked furiously to stabilize failing systems, but nothing had caused the star to pause except her presence. Flashbacks rose within her, not memories of her own life, but fragments of her species' long history. Humans had endured worlds that burned too hot or froze too cold. They had survived plagues, famines, wars, and endless storms of cosmic radiation. Each struggle left a mark, a small flame of determination that could not be snuffed out. The child, though young, carried all of that in her heart. She did not know how, she only felt it. And now that inner fire reached outward, touching the star, calming it just enough to give the station a chance. A tall alien commander approached, hesitant. His kind had built empires and crushed civilizations, but they had never faced a power like this. He looked at the child, searching for some weakness, some sign that this was an illusion. There was none, only calm, and a strange radiance that seemed to flow from her small body. He wanted to step closer, but fear rooted him in place. He felt respect, awe, and something else, something ancient and unnameable. The child turned her head slightly and noticed him. She did not speak, but she did not need to. He understood the quiet message in her eyes. "I am doing what must be done. Trust me." Outside, the star's pulse grew uneven. Sensors showed that its collapse was not steady but responding to some subtle force. Other beings across the galaxy picked up readings that made no sense. How could a human, a fragile species, affect the fate of a star? Every theory failed. Every model collapsed, observers whispered, and fleets paused in awe. No weapon could do this. No machine. No alien power. Only life, only hope. Only endurance. Inside the station, another tremor shook the walls. Some ran for safety. Others froze. Engineers shouted at malfunctioning consoles, trying to predict what would happen next. The child lifted her small hands, not commanding, not forcing. The tremors slowed. Alarms dulled. Machines steadied. Pain eased in the wounded. The presence of this human shifted reality itself. The commander spoke to his officers, voice trembling. Move her away. Protect her. Keep her safe. Yet no one could move quickly enough. The child's influence expanded in subtle waves, softening fear, calming machines, and shaping energy in ways no one understood. She did not know the how or the why. She only knew that the star's pain mirrored the pain humans had endured, and her heart could touch it. In the observation deck, she pressed her forehead to the glass and whispered softly, "I remember. I see. You are not alone." Across the station, sensors adjusted as if listening. Data streamed on screens in patterns that no algorithm could explain. The star's collapse was slowing in reaction to her presence, responding not to power but to memory, endurance, and hope, carried quietly by a small human. Other crew members began to understand, though in fragments. Humans were not strong in muscle or technology. They were fragile, short-lived, and underestimated. Yet, when faced with impossible odds, they endured. That endurance had become a subtle force, invisible but real. The child embodied it all, unknowingly wielding the sum of her species' resilience against the collapse of a star. The tall commander watched, heart racing. He realized that humans had survived empires, plagues, and cosmic storms, not because they conquered, but because they carried in their hearts a force that made the universe bend, if only slightly, to allow them to continue. This child was not extraordinary because of training or magic. She was ordinary, yet extraordinary, because of what humans were at their core. Outside, distant observers recorded the anomaly. Ships that had tracked the dying star for decades now paused. Deep sensors captured readings that contradicted all known science. A human presence was interacting with stellar energy. The fleets whispered among themselves, disbelief and fear mixing. How could a small, fragile being affect a star? How could a single human carry the legacy of an entire species in her heart and change the flow of cosmic energy? Inside the station, another tremor struck. The star reacted violently for a moment. The child's small frame swayed slightly, but she did not fall. Her hands lifted, a subtle gesture. The tremor slowed. Alarms became manageable. Fear eased. Soldiers and engineers looked at one another, astonished. No one understood, yet all felt it. Something real, something powerful, flowed through the small human. She closed her eyes briefly and felt the weight of all humans who had lived and endured before her. She felt their losses, their pain, their triumphs. She felt their joy, their hope, and their determination. It was not strength in the usual sense, but it was power, the quiet, unyielding power of survival. And the star, sensing this, responded. It did not heal. It did not fully stop collapsing, but it paused. It listened. It accepted her presence. The commander tried again to order her removed, to place her somewhere safe, but he could not bring himself to act. He felt something ancient stir within him, something that told him that no matter his training, no matter his power, this human must not be disturbed. He stepped aside, letting her continue. The child walked slowly to the center of the observation deck. Her presence expanded outward, unnoticed, yet undeniable. Engineers felt their hands steady. Consoles worked correctly. Pain eased in the injured. Soldiers stopped panicking. Fear diminished in those around her. The small human carried an invisible energy, not of the mind, not of machines, but of life itself. Her voice, soft and almost inaudible, spoke again. Do not fear the fire. Do not fear the light. The words were simple, but their effect was profound. The station felt it. The star felt it. Somewhere, distant observers felt it. The collapse continued, but it obeyed her subtle rhythm, slowing in response to her quiet presence. The child pressed a small hand to the glass. The heat of the star reached her, but it did not burn. She felt its life and its suffering. She whispered again, I am here. I see you. You are not alone. And the star responded, slowing its collapse again, stabilizing slightly, giving the station a chance to survive. The crew of the station stared at her, awe and fear mixing. No human should be able to do this. No human should carry such power unknowingly. And yet, here she was, a small girl, a child, shaping the fate of a star without thought, without desire for glory, simply because she carried in her heart the sum of humanity's endurance. Outside, distant ships recorded the anomaly. Observers debated, argued, and whispered. Humans were not to be underestimated. This small human had proven it. Fragile, short-lived, weak in body, but strong in ways the galaxy had never understood. She carried the legacy of 1,000 suns in her heart. The child closed her eyes and rested her small forehead against the glass again. The star pulsed slowly, listening, calming. The station's alarms quieted. Engineers adjusted controls with hands that no longer shook. Soldiers watched, silent. Even the commander felt something he could not name. A deep respect for the fragile creature that bent reality not with force, but with presence, with endurance, with a quiet flame of being alive. The child opened her eyes and looked at the star. She felt a connection that no one could explain. She did not fully understand herself, yet she knew she could not stop. She had to continue. And in that moment, the galaxy learned something new. Humans were not weak. They were subtle, resilient, and capable of shaping the universe in ways no weapon or machine could achieve. The small human had shown them the first proof, and none would ever forget it. The station shivered under the unstable light of the dying star. Energy hummed through the halls, machines responding not to commands, but to something deeper. The child stood at the observation deck, feeling the pulse of the star, sensing its fear and exhaustion. She had no instruments, no tools, no training, yet she understood its rhythm, the way it trembled and called silently for help. Around her, the crew watched in disbelief. Engineers adjusted consoles desperately, but every calculation failed. Soldiers and officers stood rigid, unsure how to act. No one had ever seen anything like this. The child, small and unassuming, radiated a calm force that defied logic. She did not move with urgency. She moved with purpose that came from instinct, from the quiet endurance of her species, from the countless generations of humans who had survived when all else failed. Outside, the star pulsed violently, threatening to collapse entirely. Its outer layers shook, sending waves of radiation that rattled the station. Sensors recorded impossible readings. Patterns of energy were bending around the child's presence. Distant observers could not believe it. A single human being was interacting with the life of a star. Machines, laws of physics, and alien technology faltered against her quiet force. The child raised her small hands slightly, as if offering the star reassurance. Light flowed through the glass of the observation deck and seemed to respond. The station stabilized. Alarms became manageable, and tremors slowed. Pain eased in the wounded. The impossible was happening, yet no one understood why. It was not strength, not a weapon, not a plan. It was something intangible, carried in the small heart of a fragile human. A tall officer approached, hesitant and trembling. He had led fleets across galaxies, conquered worlds, and shattered enemies. Yet here he was powerless. He tried to speak, to command, to protect her, but a strange force stopped him. Not fear, not weakness, but a recognition of something older and stronger than any army. He stepped aside. The child needed no help in controlling the impossible. She needed only to exist. The child's gaze remained fixed on the star. She could feel its suffering, its rage, its exhaustion. It was like nothing she had felt before, yet something inside her resonated with it. She remembered stories of humanity surviving impossible worlds, enduring burning suns, freezing wastelands, and storms that tore the land apart. Each memory, though not her own, carried weight. She carried all of it now, as if it had fused with her soul. And in return, the star paused, listening, allowing the station a moment of reprieve. The crew whispered among themselves. Some wanted to remove her, to hide her, to stop the human that bent the universe. Others froze, caught in awe, unable to move. Machines began to respond better. Lights flickered less. Engines hummed steadily. Pain in the wounded eased further. Every effect was subtle, but real. The child's presence was reshaping the environment, the station, and the star's dying core, without intention, without effort. The child stepped closer to the observation window. She felt the heat of the star, immense, yet not burning her. Its energy flowed like water, turbulent and chaotic, yet she could touch it with her thoughts, her presence, her quiet endurance. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "Do not fear. Do not be alone." The star trembled and pulsed slowly in response, calming in tiny increments. A nearby scientist shook his head, refusing to believe the readings. No human could survive such proximity to a star without protection. Yet she did, untouched, carrying a force no technology could measure. The child did not notice him or anyone else. Her mind and heart were one with the star, feeling its rhythm, its pain, its fear. She offered it calm, hope, endurance. And it responded. The commander, standing at the edge of the deck, realized humans were underestimated, not weak, not fragile, resilient, persistent. The child embodied this. All humans carried this strength quietly, invisibly, and she alone was showing it to the galaxy in real time. The star itself, threatened with annihilation, recognized it and paused. Another tremor shook the station, this time stronger, more violent. Lights flickered, alarms screamed, and the ground shook. The crew rushed to safety, but the child remained. She lifted her hands, radiating calm. The tremors slowed. The star pulsed less violently. Alarms dulled. Machines steadied. The impossible was happening again, yet everyone in the station now knew. This was her doing. The child pressed her hands to the glass. "I am here." I see you. You are not alone. Her voice was soft, yet it carried across the station. Pain eased in the wounded. Fear diminished in soldiers. Machines aligned with her presence, responding to the invisible energy she radiated. Distant observers across space, reading the anomaly, could not explain it. A human, fragile and small, had touched the life of a star. The child stepped back slightly, letting her presence spread. She did not command, did not control. She simply existed, radiating the endurance of a species that had survived everything the universe had thrown at it. The star slowed its collapse again, small but noticeable. The station shivered less. The crew took cautious breaths, unable to understand, yet grateful. A young engineer approached her cautiously. His hands shook, and he whispered a question. How? How are you doing this? She looked at him and smiled faintly, shaking her head. She did not know the answer. She only knew it had to be done, and she felt a quiet certainty that she was the one to do it. Outside, the star pulsed, responding to her small hands, her quiet presence, her heart. Alarms dulled, systems steadied, and distant fleets watched, awestruck. The impossible was unfolding. The child, a single human, was interacting with the energy of a star, shaping its dying core with nothing but endurance, presence, and memory. The commander felt awe and fear together. He had conquered planets, won wars, and studied the universe. Yet here he was, powerless, watching a child bend reality by living fully, carrying the weight of her species, and touching the impossible. Humans had always survived because they endured, and now the galaxy could see the proof. The child took a deep breath, closing her eyes. She could feel the star responding, slowing, pulsing in rhythm with her small heartbeat. She whispered softly again, "Do not fear the light." The station responded, crew and machines alike. Pain eased further. Fear diminished. Machines aligned. And the star, in its dying brilliance, seemed to understand that it was not alone, that this small human carried the legacy of countless generations. In her heart, she opened her eyes, gazing at the star. She did not fully understand what she had done, yet instinct told her she must continue. And in that quiet act of presence, of endurance, of living fully against impossible odds, the galaxy learned something new. Humans were not weak. They were subtle, resilient, and capable of influencing forces far greater than any weapon or machine could achieve. The child, small and unassuming, carried 1,000 suns in her heart, and the star, for the first time in its life, listened. The station felt the trembling of the star, though it had slowed enough to be barely noticeable. Alarms were quieter. Machines hummed steadily. Soldiers and crew alike moved carefully, some still unsure if the human child had truly affected the star. Yet the evidence was undeniable. The star had paused its violent collapse in response to her presence, and nothing else could explain it. The child stood at the observation window, feeling the pulsing warmth of the star. She had learned to sense it, its pain and exhaustion, its anger and fear. It was as though the star had a life, and she could reach it without touching it. Her small hands lifted, not to control, not to command, but to offer reassurance. She felt the legacy of humanity inside her, carried in memory, in endurance, in the quiet determination that had allowed humans to survive harsh suns, cold planets, and deadly storms. Now that legacy flowed outward from her, touching the star and the station alike. Around her, the crew watched in a mixture of awe and fear. Engineers adjusted consoles, but their calculations were irrelevant. Soldiers and officers stood still, unsure how to act. No one had ever seen a human influence so much without weapons or technology. The child did not notice them. She focused only on the star, feeling its trembling pulse and offering calm. Every step she took, every breath, every heartbeat seemed to ripple outward, affecting energy, gravity, machines, and even the emotions of those nearby. Outside, distant observers tracked the anomaly. Ships recorded impossible readings. A human presence was interacting with the star's dying energy. Scientists argued in disbelief, commanders whispered in fear, and the galaxy watched in silent awe. Humans had always been underestimated. Short-lived, fragile, and weak by many standards, they had survived for reasons no one had recognized. Now the proof was clear. The child lifted her hands higher, feeling the rhythm of the star, sensing its suffering. The trembling inside her chest grew stronger, a mixture of fear, hope, and determination. She whispered softly, "Do not be afraid. You are not alone." The star pulsed again, slower this time, responding to her presence. Tremors in the station diminished. Alarms quieted. Machines worked steadily. Even the wounded crew felt their pain lessen. A tall officer approached, hesitant and uneasy. He had faced war, conquered worlds, and led fleets, but nothing prepared him for this. He wanted to command, to order, to move the child to safety, but he found himself rooted. The child's presence created a quiet force that stopped him. It was not fear or obedience, but recognition. He stepped aside, letting her continue. He realized that the humans were not weak. They survived against all odds because they carried in their hearts something that no empire, no technology, no weapon could ever destroy. The child pressed a small hand against the observation window. Heat flowed through it, immense yet not harmful. She sensed the star's life, its fear, its pain, and its hope. Memories of humans surviving impossible conditions echoed inside her. She could feel every trial and every triumph, every loss and every victory. That collective endurance radiated outward, calming the star, stabilizing its pulse. She did not know the mechanics or the science behind it, but instinct guided her. She had to continue. The survival of the station, perhaps even the star, depended on it. Around her, the crew whispered among themselves. Some were terrified, others awestruck. They wanted to remove her, protect her, stop her influence, yet something inside them held them back. The child was not acting to harm or dominate. She simply existed, radiating calm and endurance, and in doing so, she shaped the environment, the station, and the dying star. The realization settled on everyone. Humans, though physically weak, carried a subtle, profound power in their endurance, their hearts, their ability to survive the impossible. Another tremor shook the station, stronger than before. The crew reacted, rushing for safety, yet the child remained. She lifted her hands, radiating calm. The tremors slowed. Alarms became manageable. Machines stabilized. Pain eased in the wounded. The impossible was unfolding. No one could explain it. No one could understand it fully. And yet, it was real. The child whispered again, "I am here. I see you. You are not alone." Her words were simple, soft, almost lost in the hum of the station, yet they carried power. Pain eased further. Fear diminished. Machines aligned with her presence. The star, in its dying brilliance, seemed to understand that it was not alone, that this small human carried the legacy of countless generations within her. Her presence alone shaped the star's energy, bending the impossible into the possible. A young engineer stepped closer, voice trembling. "How are you doing this?" he asked. The child looked at him and shook her head. She did not know the answer. She only knew it had to be done, and she was the one to do it. Her calm determination resonated with everyone around her. Crew members who had been panicked moments ago now found themselves steady, their hands sure, their minds clear. Machines responded as if guided by her will. And all the while, the star's collapse slowed, giving the station a chance to survive. Outside, distant fleets and observers recorded the anomaly in disbelief. A single human was influencing a star. Science had no answer. Technology had no answer. Yet it was happening. The child, small and unassuming, carried the endurance, memory, and spirit of her species into the galaxy, proving that humans were not fragile in the way anyone believed. Their power was subtle, hidden, and deeply profound. The commander watched silently, awe and fear mixing within him. He had led armies, conquered planets, and faced impossible odds, but nothing compared to witnessing a child bend the universe with presence alone. Humans had survived the cosmos not by strength or cunning, but by endurance and heart. This child was proof. She carried the fire of 1,000 generations within her. She was small, fragile, and yet powerful beyond comprehension. The child closed her eyes and pressed her forehead against the glass. She felt the pulse of the star, responding to her small heartbeat, and she whispered softly, "Do not fear the light." The station responded. Machines aligned. Pain eased further. Fear diminished. And the star, in its dying brilliance, recognized her presence, letting her small human heart shape its energy, giving the station a chance to survive, giving hope to those who had thought all was lost. She opened her eyes again and looked at the star. She did not fully understand the magnitude of what she had done, yet instinct told her to continue. Her presence alone was enough to calm, to steady, to endure. And in that act, she taught the galaxy something it had not realized. Humans were not weak. They were subtle, resilient, and capable of shaping forces far greater than any weapon or machine. She carried 1,000 suns in her heart, and the star, for the first time in its life, listened and paused. The star trembled, but its collapse had slowed enough to give the station a moment of calm. The child stood at the observation window, feeling the pulsing energy, sensing its life and pain. Around her, crew members whispered, afraid and awed at the impossible sight. Machines hummed steadily. Soldiers and officers watched in silence. No one understood how a human could affect a star. Yet it was happening. The child felt exhaustion building in herself, yet she did not stop. Every heartbeat carried the memory of humanity's struggles, worlds that burned, storms that destroyed cities, famines that emptied planets, plagues that ended generations. Humans endured them all. That endurance flowed into her now, radiating outward toward the star. She did not know the full extent of her power, but instinct guided her. It had to be done, and she was the one to do it. The tall commander approached quietly, observing. He had conquered planets and led armies, yet nothing had prepared him for this. He realized humans had been underestimated. They survived because of heart, not strength. They endured because they carried hope, memory, and determination deep within. The child embodied all of it. He wanted to move her to safety, yet he could not. Something in the air, something in her presence, stopped him. He stepped aside. Outside, distant fleets and observers recorded the anomaly. Humans, fragile and short-lived, were influencing the fate of a star. Scientists debated, arguing that it was impossible, Machines and laws of physics could not explain it, yet it was real. The small human carried the legacy of her species and shaped the universe with it. The child pressed a small hand to the observation window. Heat flowed through it, immense yet not harmful. She whispered softly, "Do not fear. You are not alone." The star responded, pulsing slower, calmer. Tremors in the station lessened. Alarms dulled. Machines stabilized. Even the injured crew felt relief. She had no weapon, no command, no plan. Only her heart and presence. That was enough. A young engineer asked in trembling voice, "How are you doing this?" The child shook her head. She did not know. She only knew it had to be done, and she was the one to do it. Her calm certainty spread to the crew. Panic eased, hands steadied, machines aligned. The star, sensing her presence, responded. It did not heal, but it paused, listened, and accepted. The commander realized something profound. Humans survived because they endured. They carried fire in their hearts, a quiet strength that could not be measured. The child embodied it. She was small and fragile, yet more powerful than any army or technology. She carried the memory of countless generations within her, and now the galaxy could see it. The child took a deep breath, closing her eyes. She felt the pulse of the star, its life and fear, and she whispered again, "Do not fear the light." The station responded. Machines aligned. Fear diminished. Pain eased. The star, in its dying brilliance, recognized her presence, letting her shape its energy, giving the station a chance to survive. The star pulsed once more, steadying, calm, for the first time in centuries. The station shivered slightly, then settled. Crew members looked at one another, disbelief and relief mixing. Engineers checked readings, finding stability where none should exist. Soldiers lowered their weapons, understanding that the child had done the impossible. The child opened her eyes. She did not fully understand what had happened, yet instinct told her to continue to be present, to endure, to offer hope. Her small hands lifted slightly, radiating calm. The star, sensing her presence, responded with warmth and steady light. The station, the crew, the injured, and even distant observers felt it. Humans were not weak. They were resilient. They carried endurance in their hearts, and now the galaxy could see it. Days passed and the child did not falter. She rested when she could, yet always kept connection with the star. Scientists monitored the readings, unable to fully explain them. Soldiers kept watch, in awe. The commander noted every detail, realizing humans were not as fragile as the galaxy assumed. Their strength was quiet, subtle, invisible, and impossible to measure, yet powerful enough to shape stars. Eventually, the star stabilized enough that the station could plan proper repairs, energy systems adjusted, shields recalibrated. Crew members moved with purpose. The child stepped back slightly, letting her presence still affect the star but allowing others to act. Her small frame glowed softly, not with heat, but with the endurance of a species that had survived impossible odds for millennia. The commander approached the child once more, bowing his head in respect. Humans, he realized, were not to be underestimated. This small human had saved the station, altered a star's collapse, and shown the galaxy the quiet strength of her species. He had faced countless threats, yet none compared to witnessing a human endure and influence life itself. The child smiled faintly. She did not need praise or recognition. She had acted because it was necessary, because it was her instinct. She had carried 1,000 suns in her heart, and had shared a fraction of that strength with the dying star. And in return, the star had listened. Outside, distant fleets recorded the event. They would return to their governments with reports that defied explanation. Humans were no longer just fragile beings. They were bearers of endurance, carriers of hope, and stabilizers of forces greater than any weapon could reach. The galaxy learned that the smallest human could influence the universe in ways unimaginable. The child looked at the star one last time before turning away. She had done what she could. She had given herself and her species' legacy to the universe, and the star had accepted it. Around her, the station returned to cautious calm. Crew members repaired damage. Soldiers resumed duties. Engineers stabilized systems. The impossible had been done, yet no one could take it for granted. The child felt weak, yet alive. Her small hands rested against the railing. She had survived. Humans had endured. The star was calmer, the station safer, and the galaxy had witnessed something new, the quiet, unyielding power of human endurance. The child, small and unassuming, carried the fire of her species, the strength of survival, and the hope of 1,000 generations. And in the quiet aftermath, the galaxy whispered its warning: never underestimate the smallest human, for inside them burns 1,000 suns.